So the first thing I want to say is that this whole idea of doing cardio regularly has been something that I contemplated doing on and off for the past, I would say, 5 or 6 years. The whole thing made sense to me. Cardio does give you some health benefits that lifting simply cannot. Lifting can give you a ton of health benefits, make no mistake. It is actually quite remarkable how complex and complete this whole resistance training package is as far as your whole body, in fact, your whole being is concerned. But it does have its limits, and there is just no way to escape that. And I've been aware of that for many years now. And so I contemplated incorporating it into my routine, but there were always various things that ultimately just held me back. If I want to be completely real with you, the main point of friction for me was that the motivation was just not strong enough. I simply felt that the rewards that I could get for doing cardio were simply too abstract and too distant. The benefits of lifting, while there are a lot of long-term benefits and a lot of intangibles as well that might not be apparent to you in the moment, there's always that very strong pull of chasing vanity goals. And lifting is just a very straightforward and obvious path for getting to those vanity goals. So even during the times when I didn't feel as motivated to go to the gym and complete the workload that I should or I thought I should, there was always that perk that I could chase some relatively short-term aesthetics goals for the summer or what have you. Obviously, as I'm getting older, I try to be better at keeping in mind the long term as well, but still, ultimately, when it comes down to making the decision whether you are going to spend an extra 45 minutes in the gym to do your cardio or to replace one of your lifting days with a day of doing just cardio, it does help for sure if you have some short-term motivator as well. But for me, it was always just this rather intangible, abstract goal of, okay, I know if I did some cardio, it would improve my cardiovascular fitness and longevity, and it would be cardio protective. All of those things looked always great on paper, and that's why during my more inspired moments, I always made big promises to myself in my head that I'm going to do this. When it really came down to it, I could just not motivate myself to do this consistently. I did have some attempts. There were 2 or 3 times over the years where I did start and even stuck with it for a week or two. But since this motivator was just not strong enough for me, inevitably it always came down to that one day where I could just not bother going. Then that broke my momentum. And then it was just hard to build back up. And slowly this habit just faded out of my life again and again. Obviously, as the years passed and I've gotten older, for one thing, I would like to think that my ability to be motivated by longer term pursuits has increased. But secondly, each year that I'm getting closer to my eventual deathbed, I guess the long-term goal becomes incrementally shorter and shorter. So maybe that helped as well. But the thing that eventually pushed me over the edge was actually none of those things, but it was a series of experiences, very personal and hard-hitting experiences, which gave me a really good reality check as to where I truly was with my cardiovascular fitness. I did have a feeling that my cardio fitness was probably not top notch, as I was really not doing any cardio, and even my weightlifting sessions are relatively low volume, short, heavy weights, low rep sets for the most part. So why would it be good? But as a guy who at least looked fit, I do have my memories, which of course might be slightly colored at this point, about how incredibly endurant and fit I was in my youth. So I just had some general idea, really just a guess as to where I could be. Yeah, I was sure that someone who regularly does hard cardio and is regularly pushing his or her ability to be better at this would beat me, but I definitely still would have placed myself above just your average Joe or a couch potato. But some of these experiences really just made me realize that no matter who you are, no matter how fit you might look, no matter how strong you are, if you don't practice and train to be better at something, you're not gonna be good at that thing. So the first experience was in the spring or early summer of 2024. That was the first time where I really had to take a hard look in the mirror. And it was this hike that I took with this buddy of mine to this mountaintop, I knew that it was a hard-ish climb for some. Some people at the time, when I told them that I'm going to go for this hike, warned me that it's going to be super, super rough. And I was just scoffing at them like, yeah, maybe for you couch potatoes, it is hard, but come on, like, it's not like we are running up there. We are just going to walk upwards. And I mean, what could be the problem? Well, long story short, the dude I was hiking with was dictating a pretty heavy tempo. And to say that I was not able to keep the pace with him would be a criminal understatement. After about 20 minutes or so, I really felt like I was approaching my limits. At that point, I really just wanted to ask him to take a break or to stop, or at least ask him how much is left from the hike. And I remember resisting the temptation to ask him any of those things because I was thinking, surely we must be pretty close to the end, because I mean, I'm so close to being done, and surely I'm fit enough to only be this close to being done when a rough hike is already approaching its end. So I was just holding on. But at a certain point, I just couldn't hold it any longer. And then I asked him, like, hey, so, I mean, are we close? Like, how far is the end? And then he just casually looked at his watch and said, like, I think we might be at the halfway point at this point. And in that moment, I just felt all the strength leaving my body. And I just collapsed on the ground saying, okay, dude, then you just go on without me. I'll follow you a bit later. I even have a picture that I took of his calf. He has good calves, by the way. I just snapped the picture to assess his calf development. But in retrospect, I'm actually very glad that I did it, because it's a reminder forever of that day where I got humbled big time. The most dramatic memory from this day actually came after this, at which point I was sitting there for a while. And then I saw a couple of nerdy looking dudes walking the same way, like 15, 20 minutes later. I even exchanged a couple of words with them. It turned out that they are pretty hardcore World of Warcraft players. So I was thinking, okay, surely I will be good enough to continue with them. But man, I wasn't. You know, all of us have those ideas about ourselves, and we have these ideas that okay, certain things can just not happen to me or cannot happen with me no matter what. And being so unfit that I just cannot hike up to the top of this hill was just not something that I ever entertained as a possibility that, okay, like one day this could happen to me. Like, okay, maybe when I'm like over 70 years old, which is far enough in the future that I cannot really picture how that time will be. Okay, maybe then. But at this point in my life, like, oh my God. So that was one humbling experience. The other one was actually with my girlfriend, who was preparing for a marathon at the time. And one day she convinced me to accompany her for her run. And sure, I had this idea of myself that, okay, obviously I'm not fit enough to compete with a runner or some endurance athlete, but surely with my recreationally fit, definitely fitter than average, but still, I mean, not as fit as me. I mean, look at me. Surely with her, I should be able to keep the pace, even if I was not practicing running, even if my running technique surely sucks. Just as a matter of general everyday fitness levels, I should be able to run like a 5K with her or something like that. But after 1 kilometer, the sensation that was overpowering my body, the burning of my lungs, and just the sheer unwillingness of every muscle in my body to cooperate any further, I wouldn't say it was shocking, because to some level I had to acknowledge that, okay, like, you get good at what you practice, and I certainly did not practice this. But still, the bodily sensations that I was feeling, and contrasting that with how my girlfriend was looking like after that same 1 kilometer, was striking, and it just hit home, and it felt so real, and it was so tangible all of a sudden. Like, this is what it looks like when one person is just so much fitter than the other. Like, I was puking my lungs out. I was so gassed, and she was still able to hold a conversation comfortably. She was not even remotely close to being out of breath. And seeing it like that in action, like seeing the manifestation of all of these things that I heard about, cardio fitness and VO2 max and all of these things, seeing it in front of me laid out like this, all of a sudden just felt so much more motivating than anything else that I ever read about cardio, the benefits of cardio, the knowledge that objectively this would be something that could benefit me. It was a very revelatory experience. And from that day onwards, the landscape just changed completely for me. I became not just motivated, but I became interested. I have been doing cardio ever since that day, every week, at least once, but I aimed to do it more. On my better weeks, I did it as frequently as 3 to 4 times a week. But the even cooler thing about it is that I have that same feeling again that I remember having all the time in the beginning of my lifting journey. You know how that is when you get into a new topic and you're completely new to it and you start reading about it, then you start learning about the people that are truly at an elite level at this. So I knew, for example, that there is this crazy, freaky marathon runner guy who is breaking all kinds of weird records. Now I really learned who the hell Kipchoge is. And not just that, but I learned to appreciate how absolutely ridiculous it is what these people are doing. I mean, roughly a month ago, I was over the moon because I hit a massive PR on a 1 kilometer run attempt. I ran it under 4 minutes, so my time was 3 minutes, 57 seconds. It was an all-out effort, again, throwing my lungs up, basically. I collapsed on the ground, and even bystanders were giving me some props because they could see the crazy effort that I put in over the last 200 meters or so. Well, seeing that someone like Kipchoge is able to run it like a minute faster and maintaining that for 42 kilometers for a marathon is, I mean, really, this is the sort of thing when you just run out of remarks to use, because you just cannot quite put it into words how absurd that is. It's almost like I want to go up to these people and just shake them. Like, how can you be so freaking fit? Like, this is not supposed to happen. And so really, I just started opening up the doors and all kinds of vistas in this completely new world that was fully irrelevant to me up until now. And I'm really learning fascinating things every week. So it's pretty cool, actually. And so the general cardio benefits finally became tangible to me. Now I'm finally able to see what it looks like to be truly fit and how crappy it feels to be unfit cardiovascularly. So that became a motivator for me. And it is even more interesting for me to learn about the performances and the running times of some of the people that I know. And I've known for a long time that they do cardio regularly, or maybe they have some track and field background. For example, Jeffrey Verity Schofield, I know that he was coming from a background like that. I'm sure he mentioned his running times on various podcasts, but I was like, why is this supposed to be interesting to me at all? Well, now it is. Knowing that he ran miles at 5 minutes or less than that, I mean, it is just unbelievably impressive. And it is super motivating for me to try to get closer to that. So yeah, now I have some athletic goals that I'm pursuing. I have some running times specifically that I'm pursuing. And it is just really, really exciting. And that brings me to the second point that got me into this whole cardio interest now. And that is, it is just so cool, once again, to be a complete newbie at something and experiencing those amazing newbie gains. This is something that I've not had the chance to experience in lifting, obviously, since my newbie years. Obviously, with the passing of the years and approaching my genetic limit more and more, I always managed to find new goals and new little projects, new personal bests that I was trying to hit in the gym. And I think I was relatively successful at this. I managed to keep it exciting enough for myself to where I never truly lost my motivation, except during that video game phase once again, but that was a little bit of a unique one. You can always find new lifts. You can always find some area of your body or a muscle group that was neglected more than it should have been. So you can do all of this, but that super blessed, exciting time in the beginning where you just see crazy leaps week to week, and you can look forward to some truly impressive PR on a very regular basis, that is just something that's not going to happen when you've been doing it for over 10 years. And at least you've been doing, 6, 7 of those relatively productively. I've definitely made tons of mistakes over the course of my lifting journey, and I delayed my progress by quite a lot. But still, by the time you've been lifting over 13 years, you can only expect so much. And that's not a problem. That's not a reason to get demotivated or to get resentful. But that doesn't change the fact that when you find an avenue where you can experience that once again, it is a delight. Like I said, I'm not really gonna dig into anything too deeply today. But one thing that I've learned about cardio is that the adaptations come fast and go fast. So if you miss some time, if you have a layoff, then you will lose quite a bit more ground than what you would in lifting if you miss the same amount of time. But the good news is that the gains are also fairly quick, faster than they would be in lifting. So I can do things now when I try to run, for example, which a month ago made me collapse on the ground and just gasp for air for 5 minutes straight, which is pretty crazy. I mean, if I had to think back to a time where I could notice an improvement like that in lifting, I would have to go back many, many years. And so, yes, I want to become much fitter cardiovascularly. I want to be able to run up a very long flight of stairs, even with some groceries in my hand. And I would like to still be able to talk at the end of it. I don't want to run out of breath so easily. I also want to increase my work capacity in the gym. And that's another thing that I think I may have taken it for granted too much, that my tendencies in the gym are just the way they are. So yes, I may be responding better to more moderate volumes or maybe even slightly lower volumes. That might be the case. But the degree to which I tend to gas out in the gym, I don't think that those things can be just explained by muscle fiber composition or just my individual genetics. I think a lot of that is just conditioning, if I really want to be honest with myself. And lastly, it actually became fairly apparent to me as I started doing these cardio sessions that cardio is a very good way to train your fortitude. People talk about lifting, increasing your fortitude and increasing your grit, increasing your discipline. And absolutely, I think there's a lot of truth to that. To be honest, for myself personally, the biggest discipline training effect of training only came when I didn't feel like going to the gym, but then I willed myself to go there anyway. Once I was in the gym, I never really felt that. I mean, pressing some really heavy weight over your head or standing up with a really heavy weight, I mean, by the time I get there, it's actually quite fun. The whole set lasts like 20, 30 seconds. And when you manage to stand up with that weight or when you manage to press it over your head, you're feeling like the biggest badass in the world. So for myself, at least personally, I didn't really feel like that was really training my discipline. To me, it felt more like a really nice ego stroke. Like I stood up with the weight. I hope everybody saw it. I'm the biggest superhero over here. When you translate that sort of effort and that sort of accomplishment to cardio language, I mean, you don't really feel like a superhero. You feel like dying there on the ground. And also by the time you get there, so the path that leads to hitting a new PR on a run, for example, it's not just grunting under some heavy weight and then standing like this at the end and staring in the mirror with your eyes popping. No, like there will be several points during a run when you will absolutely feel like giving up. And I even felt myself getting kind of bitchy during runs. Like, oh my God, like this whole thing doesn't make sense. Oh my God, I'm so weak. But then I somehow managed to get over that hump and finishing the session. And at the end, I felt like dying even more, but I knew that I somehow pushed through. Now, that was a moment that I could actually see being translated down to other everyday things, which might also make me feel frustrated or make me feel like giving up. Like there are definitely times with work and just everyday hassles, everyday annoyances where I feel like the waves are closing over my head and it all seems a little bit desperate and like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. I think experiences like what you can gather during a truly hard cardio session can definitely come handy, and you can definitely reach back to those to give you some strength during these times. And so, yeah, long story short, I am motivated by this stuff. And my girlfriend actually asked me not that long ago what my goals are for this upcoming year in terms of training. And my response was that I want to do cardio regularly. I didn't even say I want to hit these benchmarks or I want to have these running results or rowing results or whatever else. You know, it's just that I truly finally want to get to that point where I can say that consistently over a long period of time, cardio has been a part of my routine without fail. I also said, by the way, training abs regularly because that was also something that I started and then stopped again and again. So have been doing that as well, by the way, for the last 3 months or so. And I definitely want to keep that up too, but certainly not as excited about that as I am about this cardio thing. So I'm still lifting. I definitely don't want to be losing my muscle mass. I mean, I worked hard to get it. I don't want to lose it. End of story. But have also been doing cardio, still kind of figuring my ways out, still figuring out how to best structure my week. And as I said, I'm learning this stuff still. But I'm excited about it. And if you guys are interested, I would be very happy to document what I'm doing. I do have some outcome goals or some athletic goals that I set for myself. So I do want to hit a 3.5 minute kilometer. I use every chance to say it. So if I said it earlier in the video, I'm just going to cut it out. But my best so far is 3 minutes and 57 seconds. Yeah, I did say it. I also want to complete some truly badass competition in the future. I was thinking of an Ironman, but that might be some ways away still. I was even thinking of these random cool challenge ideas like, okay, I'm going to reach out to someone like Brian Borstein, who is not even on the same planet as me in terms of cardiovascular fitness. And the challenge could be running up these flight of stairs or run this distance, something like that. And at the end of it, read this long text. And just let's see how much can you still control your breath and how much can you still talk. And seeing how someone like him versus someone like me complete that challenge. And then seeing how over time I could improve at that and how much closer I could get to someone like him. Like, I think these could be some cool ideas, sort of just random brainstorming, but yeah, like there's room for stuff like that in the future. Again, if there's interest for that. So yeah, the channel is not going to transform into SSD cardio or anything like that. I'm still considering myself to be a lifting guy primarily, but I'm definitely stoked to have this secondary interest now. So yeah, basically, those are my reasons for taking up cardio after 15 years of lifting. It's more like 13. Let me know what you guys think about this. Maybe I gave an idea to at least some of you, and maybe you will decide to replicate what I'm currently doing as well, and it could be a good idea for you as well. So yeah, please let me know what you think of this video. If you enjoyed it or you're interested in what's coming in the future, then please drop a like and subscribe. If you're interested in working together with me in a coach-client format or do a consultation not about cardio, but about lifting, then check out the show description below. And otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.